listening to In-Fisherman Storyline, North America's top voice in multi-species freshwater angling. Here is your host, Thomas Allen.
Hey, welcome to In-Fisherman Storyline. We got a special guest in the studio today, Craig Storms, or more affectionately known as Stormy.
Stormy.
And he's a legend in his own mind anyways.
In my own mind.
But we've known each other for a few years, and I feel like every time we get together, it seems like we're kind of kindred spirits. We have a poor sense of humor. We like probably the same foods. Just it's a good time.
Yeah,
and
it is a good time.
Craig has been spending a lot of time on the ice. Well, he's on the road 24/7, it seems like, and was at the St. Paul Ice Show last week. And if you're going to be that close to Red Lake with early ice, you got to go.
You got to go, bro.
And you spent 3 days there, 4 days? What was it?
5 days.
5 days?
5 days. I got blown out on Wednesday. It was minus 30
Yeah, it was cold.
with 30-mile-an-hour winds, you know. It was a good work day. Mm-hmm. So catch up in emails and everything.
Well, we're going to dig into the legend of Stormy. We're going to talk a little bit about where he got his start, where his passion for fishing came from. But you also may know Craig as the face of Dakota Lithium. He's a guy that's on the road representing the brand, works with a lot of pro anglers. And I do feel like I see you in this neck of the woods more often than not, but you're not anywhere from here, are you?
No, I'm up from upstate New York.
Upstate New York. What town?
Jersey born.
Yeah?
Upstate New York. I'm about an hour south of Syracuse.
Are people born in Jersey with an accent? Like, are they, before they can even talk? Like, I feel like you carry it with you your entire life.
It's amazing because I could be up here close to the border and they all know I'm from Jersey.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild.
Well, the Jersey accent's recognizable, but around here, the In-Fisherman folks originated in Chicago, and
so they got the Chicago gig?
A little bit of it, yeah. But I mean, like it's clear in Wisconsin. I feel like the accent in Wisconsin is obviously, it has a twinge of Chicago in it. Yeah. And it's like when you cross the border into Minnesota, that's when you draw out your O's a little bit more. And, you know, there's meat raffles here. You ever done a meat raffle?
No, it's a meat raffle.
Oh my gosh. You almost need to stick around for a day. I think it's a Minnesota like classic. It's infected itself across the country to rural communities. It's basically a way you can kill an evening. You can go to a local establishment. Right. Most of the times it's bars, but a lot of restaurants have it. And they'll receive a package of meat from, let's say, the boys' high school hockey team, or whatever the Brainerd chapter of Bridge Players R Us, whatever it is. If they want to do a fundraiser, this is a good way to do it. So they'll spend $300 on meat. And then they'll have a couple folks that work at the establishment. They just kind of work the way around the room. Do you want in on this raffle? And they'll do 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds. Okay. And you just get your raffle tickets. It's got a number on it. And if they call you, you walk up to the table and you're in line to pick out a meat of your choice.
It's a Minnesota thing.
I mean, it is.
Definitely Minnesota.
And when I first heard about it, Craig, I was like, I don't know that this sounds fun, but then I went and did it.
And you had fun?
It's a great time. You get to hang out with whoever you want to hang out with. And then I think my daughter and I went this last time, and we spent $20 for all the rounds. We ended up winning a package of custom cut bacon.
Oh, okay.
And dude, like when it hit my refrigerator, my son found it. It was gone in 3 days.
If you have real bacon like that, it's hard to go back to store bought. It really is.
Yeah, it's like when they say thick cut, it's actually thick cut, and it's got a nice smoke.
And that's
flavor.
the thing about where I live in upstate New York. I am in the triangle of Nowheresville. I have 800 registered voters in my town. That's it. So
it sounds wonderful.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic. My nearest neighbor's a half mile. So, and we get the best meat products, because they have the beef, they got the pigs, they got the smokehouses. It's a culinary delight. Let's put it that way.
So elaborate a little bit on upstate New York. Is there how far are you from a big city per se?
So I'm an hour and 10 minutes from Syracuse.
Okay.
I'm an hour and 20 minutes from Oneida Lake.
Okay.
And then within a 2-hour circumference, I'm probably, if no matter what you want to fish for, I can go to world class fishing. Lake Ontario is only an hour and a half from me. So Oneida Lake, and then you got the Finger Lakes, which is 2 hours to the west. So anything you want to do, it's in my wheelhouse.
I've done a little fishing up there. I've mostly covered tournaments when I worked at Bassmaster, but I have to say the first time I drove from, I want to say it might have been Syracuse to Waddington. I maybe not, but I went right through the heart of the mountains.
Yeah.
So would that have been Syracuse?
No.
Albany, maybe?
Albany, yeah.
Okay.
Albany, you would go through the mountains, yeah.
That drive was spectacular.
Yeah. And you got no cell service.
None. You got to just enjoy it.
Yeah.
But the lakes are everywhere, and we do a publication here called Kayak Fishing Fun, and since I've like, man, that would be a destination for a kayaker.
Yeah. Oh, so you're talking about you went from Syracuse
To Waddington.
not to Waddington, but you went to the one Champlain.
Maybe.
Because Champlain, you go up through the
Oh,
Adirondacks.
yes. Then we went to Waddington.
Right.
So
right.
it was that's right. But man, oh man, that lake is pretty special too, Champlain.
Oh, Champlain's a monster, bro. Can you imagine having a kayak tournament
No.
in Lake Champlain?
I mean, if the wind so much as puffs out of the south, there's
it was
8-foot rollers.
brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah. So did you grow up in Jersey or born there?
No, grew up in Jersey.
Okay.
I moved up to. It's a horror story. So, I grew up in Jersey, got married in '92, and so I was a guide. I had a great guide business going. I was a fly fishing guide on the Delaware main stem, East and West branch, and then in the fall I went up to Pulaski and guided on the Salmon River for salmon. So I was always up here, I worked construction 30 years. I was a union mudder, union sheetrocker, painter, roofer. I did it all. I just followed the seasons, And so we were always going up there. So she said, all right, let's make a go of the guiding business. We moved up from New Jersey to upstate New York. It was Christmas, right after Christmas. We got my stepdaughter a child's chemistry set. And my 2-year-old son, Zachary, he got into it. And he came out of the playroom with the dye you used to use in high school to see the cells in the onions.
Yeah. So
he got into that. And, the freak out happened, took him to the emergency room. When they ended up drowning him in activated charcoal. So that was our, 6 months up in upstate New York,
man.
and a big life move. We get nailed with that,
Yeah.
and I don't wish that on my worst enemy, losing a kid like that. And so that took 10 years of healing at least to move on.
Anyways.
Oh, dude, it's brutal.
Dude, that's a terrible story.
Yeah, it is a terrible story. It is. And, so then, in typical Stormy universe, you couldn't, and it sounds wrong, but you couldn't get in compensation because in New York State, there's a law that a victim of a wrongful death is only worth the amount of money they're making at the time of death.
Oh, no.
So Zachary was 2 years old. He wasn't making any money. So we couldn't really go after for the atrocity that they did. And so we got partnered up with the defense, the lawyer's defense down there. And they're actually trying to push in New York State legislature a law, Zachary's law, to change the wrongful death structure of that so that, families can get compensated, at least for the mental anguish. I mean, it took so long, to get back.
I can't imagine.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
It was brutal. So then, construction. And then, I was, the guiding business kind of went by the wayside, but I was still fishing hard. I was a fish head. I don't know how she put up with me, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I live in a similar situation.
Yeah. When I was in Jersey, I was in a tree 120 days a year. You know what I mean? Bow hunting in New Jersey is like hunting in Iowa. It's just in the different little suburbs and stuff like that. You see that show Seek One.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Them boys down there. That's exactly what we were doing in the 90s, you know?
Side note. So I just watched this week that hunt that they did that what's his name? Lee?
Yeah.
He went to Ohio and hunted this giant. And I have to tell you, I am a deer video fanatic. I had for years. It took us moving to Alabama for my wife to finally throw all the VHS tapes away, but I had stacks. I had hundreds of all of the big names. I was the first one at line at Walmart every year to buy these things. I've seen deer videos.
Yeah.
I know deer videos.
Oh, dude,
that video.
Real trees stuff back in the day.
The Monster Bucks videos.
Right.
The first one I bought was Monster Bucks 4.
Yeah,
That's how long ago I got started into that. Anyway, this video on Seek One, it's the very best deer video I've ever seen in my life.
They do very well, don't they?
Yep, they do an awesome job.
They really do.
So, sideline, recommend it. Go check that video out. Promise it'll be worth it. But so you spend a lot of time bow hunting urban areas.
Oh yeah,
really?
Morristown, Mars Plains area. So we would go up to Pulaski salmon fishing, and we'd get hundreds and hundreds of pounds of salmon, and then we would give that out to all the property owners in the area. And I mean, we had Mendham, we had Mars Plains, so Jockey Hollow National Park, right, is the huge federal park down there, Jockey Hollow. And so that's like the nucleus for the deer herd. They're all in there, and then they come out to the suburbs, to feed and do their thing. And so we would go around asking permission all around the suburbs around Jockey Hollow. And dude, we had some of the best property. And then the police, they all started wanting to bow hunt the area. So we were always in competition with the Mendham police.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Those days, we could bow hunt urban here. I hunted a city hunt in Iowa. It's amazing. Really, Seek One has kind of brought that attention or presented a way, and he even did a class on how to ask somebody, and he has a form they sign. It's all super smart. But I really, we work hard to get permission here.
Oh yeah.
And I would say deer hunting wise, it's impossible. Turkey hunting, we can get permission, but if you want to bow hunt someplace, like they're almost always a fast no.
Yeah, fast no. Why? Because they don't want you. It's already taken.
It's already taken, and culturally deer hunting. I think it's as big as it is in Wisconsin. Of course, you could travel the country, and there's always going to be a massive deer hunting community. Right. But the places I've lived, the places I've been, where I grew up in Iowa, it's way harder here to secure a good piece of property. Now, like you're saying, those smaller properties, if you spent time hunting in the urban scenario, you understand how to hunt a small property. And I did that, and so I'm not afraid to do that here. And I think people are learning there's value. You don't need 600 acres. I mean, it would be nice, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
You can do it.
I'll never forget. We had one of our crew, Tommy. So he wanted to come hunt with us. Right? So one of the gigs was you had to get a piece of property to come hunt with the crew, right? So he finds this place, and it's in a turnaround, right? Dead end, and it's backed up into one of the high school, Don Bosco High School, and it's just this right across the street in the back of the property is Jockey Hollow. You got the high school there, and then you have this suburb. And the first night we were there to check it out, I didn't even walk in 500 yards, right? Jacked up into a tree. I swear to God, man. 6 o'clock came, and the whole area was covered in deer. Oh. There must have been 100 deer in this spot, right? And I come back. I shot a huge 6-pointer that night, and I come back, and I tell the boys about this, and that was our number 1 prime spot for like 10 years, We jacked so many deer out of there. Because don't forget, you had Ernebuck. So, we were shooting does because you could to shoot two does, you get another buck tag. And, we always had fire departments who always wanted deer. So we gave the deer to the fire department for their venison dinners. So we always had, I think one year I shot like 12 bucks.
That's something.
Oh, dude.
But I mean, how many deer total is that then if you had to earn each of those tags? I mean, like 20?
Yeah.
Anyways.
It was a lot. It was a lot, bro.
I had a couple of those years when I was younger that it was just we had it's called the Hush program in Iowa, where you can donate the deer and it gets, fed to shelters or prisons or places like that. And, there are places in Iowa where they needed to curtail the population. Right. That was probably what was going on with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
we had so many deer.
How is it now?
Well, they had that virus that went through, and it's still good. It's still good. It's not as good as it was. Of course, it's not as good as once was.
I kind of feel like that 90s to early 2000s was the heyday.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just not the same. We still go back. We're not going this year. This is the first year in many years I'm not going to go back and do a doe hunt. There's deer here locally, but the population is really struggling here. And so I don't need to kill 4 deer. We'll take what we need. We'll each fill a tag, but we'll eat 4 or 5 deer in my house a year. Well, so we'll go to Iowa to take advantage, but EHD has been going through, and
I think they had blue tongue and
that's EHD.
Yeah.
Yep. Blue tongue is the cow version, I think. But dude, that's a terrible thing to see him get, and it kills him. Like, it wipes out an area.
They needed, you know what I mean? It's coming back though. Like one of my best buddies still in Jersey. He hunts. He's got a beautiful piece of property. He's an exterminator, so he gets really prime choice properties. You know what I mean?
I'll rid your house of roaches for permission,
dude. He's got it going on.
Yeah,
and he shoots a 130 plus every year out of that place. You know what I mean?
So I'm looking at New Jersey here. This is interesting because you think New Jersey, you think it's all urban. It's a whole big city. That's not the case.
No, just like every other state, just like New York. Everybody thinks New York is, upstate New York. They don't think about it. They think of New York City,
Boy, I've never looked at it. I have a goal. I want to shoot a turkey in every state.
Oh, there you go. Turkeys are big up in northern New Jersey.
It would be one of these years I'm going to make a northeast run. I might do New York this year. I've got a buddy up that way. But we'll see. I told him, I said, I'd really like to do a New York, Vermont combo. He's like, well, we can try. Vermont is wherever land access he's got up there. It's a little bit tougher.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be hard for me to not take the boat if we're going to be real close to Champlain.
Champlain or up on Ontario,
Boy, such a cool place. I'm looking at the map right now.
In northern Jersey, it's gotten more populated now, but where I grew up in Kinnelon, you want to hear a wild story?
Yeah.
So got into the Dakota thing, right? Got into it heavy. I met Charles, Ike's crew. Mm-hmm. He used to do all Ike's management stuff. So him and I were talking, right? And, the first conversation we had, oh, where are you from? I'm from Jersey. Okay. Where are you from? North Jersey. Okay. Where are you from? Kinnelon. He says, get out of here. He says, I grew up in Kinnelon. So we grew up in the same hometown, 20 years apart. You know what I mean? It's just, it was mind blowing,
Where is that?
Kinnelon is in Morris County. It's Kinnelon. Okay. So it's like north.
Oh yeah.
And then up above us is all of Sussex County. You got West Milford, Sussex, all the big farming areas that are still up there,
Yeah. I'm fascinated by these places. I love to get on Google Earth and kind of dig in and look at something.
And then pheasant hunting, we used to go pheasant hunting. See, I got lucky. I decided when I was 18, because after high school, I was going to go play baseball in college. I was a pretty good catcher in the day. And senior year in football, the last game against our rival, Kinnelon Butler, was the rivalry, and I had a bunch of cousins on the Butler team, and so, last game I tore up my shoulder. So I did all this rehab, went to Dr. Levy, who was at the time the Giants doctor, and did all this rehabilitation, blah, blah, blah. Got to baseball season, and first scrimmage we were in, catching, guy goes second base, and I had an arm, so I could get out from my knees, I could throw, and boom, shoulder pops out. I was like, that's it, So all scholarship opportunities, all the dreams of playing at college, professional ball didn't happen. So I was lost. And so I had my best friends in high school, Althea and her family. Her uncle was a commandant down at Piney Point Seamen's School. So I was SIU, so Seamen's International Union. So I was a merchant marine off and on for 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, so I've been all through the Middle East, Egypt, all through.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you hold a specific job on a boat?
Yeah,
or?
I was an ordinary seaman. So we steered the boat for 4 hours. We were on lookout for 4 hours. Then we worked for 4 hours. So that was our day after day. And then when Desert Storm happened, they called me because they had to man these 4 boats that were in the ready reserve unit, and they were coming out of dry dock. So my rabbi called me and said, "Stormy, we need to man these boats." So I went. I was on the SS Cape Ann. Out of 10 boats that came out of mothballs, 3 of them made it across, and we were one of the ones that made it across. So it was pretty wild.
Wow.
Here I am, 29 years old now, right?
Yeah.
29. Like, you have.
These other ships sink? What happened?
No. It just mechanically couldn't make it across. No, they couldn't make it across.
Okay.
They were in such this state of disrepair. It was terrible,
Did you like that job? That seems super interesting.
It was great when you were young, but unless you're super disciplined, you're either going to be an alcoholic or, it's a tough life.
I'm sure.
It's a tough life.
I've often, there's a couple of movies I've seen that I enjoy, and Contraband is one of them that Mark Wahlberg were in. And I know that's probably the one I can think of. There's a few others I've seen and enjoyed, but it's been an intriguing storyline lifestyle.
Yeah. But it is such a regulated industry because the Coast Guard, you have to get your ordinary seaman card, you have to get your Coast Guard card, you get tested. So it's not a game, a lot of them bow out because of that. But it was
took you to some cool places.
Oh, dude, I climbed King Tut's Pyramid, pretty cool stuff for a kid from New Jersey,
Yeah, that would
pretty cool stuff.
I could understand why that would be a cool way to live as a young guy, but on the flip side, I don't like leaving my yard. So if I got to come to the office, I come to the office. So, but fishing was always a part of your interest in day to day.
In Jersey, my house where we grew up. So when my grandfather came from New York City, he bought a whole hill in this town, right? So my grandparents were across the street from me. My one uncle was behind my grandfather. My other uncle was downtown 2 properties from him. So on my mother's side, it was all family on the top of this hill. And if you walk down the hill, it was the Butler Reservoir. So, I was down there constantly fishing in the Butler Reservoir. And then, like I said, then I got into, when I was 18, I decided I wanted to hunt. So the local bar was JR's. And there was a group of brothers down there, Gary, Glenn, and Art, and the Gormley brothers. And those guys were the most dedicated hunters and fishermen you've ever, you know what I mean? And I showed up at their driveway at 5:30 in the morning. I said, "Okay, let's go." And I married Art's stepdaughter. That's my wife. You know what I mean? So that's how we were so close, and we did so many things together.
Fishing and hunting is not nearly as enjoyable if you don't have a crew that you
gotta
run
have
with.
a crew.
There's something to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Ice fishing, especially. I mean, if you're, why are you out there?
Well, I think ice fishing is different because it's good to have, and that's what I like about. I was up at Red Lake Remote, and I just met him up there. What a great family, great guy, perfect personality to do what he's doing up there. Because as I was leaving, it's a madhouse up there right now.
I'm sure.
An absolute madhouse. But, once you get out, I'm in my hut. I'm playing video games with my live. You know what I mean? Talking on my phone and my headset. You know what I mean? I'm okay by myself up there.
Yeah,
you know,
I totally get all that. Yep, you're right. There's an element of recharging.
Yeah.
Just because guys got to have that.
February, the madness starts. You know, February, the madness starts. Following the elite boys around, and that's nonstop.
It is. I've been there and I've
September,
done that.
You know.
I do.
Yeah, you do know that way. Yeah.
I did it for 5 years. It was a good way to live. But let's catch up a little bit here on your connection to Dakota Lithium. So you have been active in the outdoors your entire life. It's a lifestyle.
Pretty much, yes.
So between moving to New York and getting established there in the fishing and the hunting communities, were you in the fishing industry?
No.
Before Dakota?
Well, in the guide. So
yeah.
When I did, like I said, I was more into the hunting industry than the fishing industry. At one point, I was running archery talk for Terry.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You probably banned me a time or two on that place.
So with the archery talk, I was the first one to start putting live links in threads. Okay. And dude, we would shut down servers. I'd work with companies, get product from companies. For the product, I put the live link in there, and then Terry said, whoa, So he put a rule in, you could only put a live link if they were running banner ads, right? So I was selling banner ads now to all these companies, right? One step. And then through that process, I found Solar Sportsman. Solar Sportsman is probably the first lithium in the sporting industry around. He was small, very small, had the idea. Him and I were talking. I tried to help him out. It was just, he was selling little 10 amp hours for $250.
Like duck decoy batteries kind of size?
No, our little 10 amp hours.
Yeah.
So he had that size.
Okay.
But he was selling them for $250 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was buying them, and I tried to explain to him, so in that time frame also, I was getting all the mom and pops who were just coming onto Facebook, and I was helping them set up their Facebook, showing them how to run social media, doing all that stuff. And then Solar Sportsman came through and I said, okay. So I Googled lithium batteries and I found Dakota Lithium in Google. I talked to Bo there. I pitched him for about a year, because I guess a lot of guys came to him and said they could do what I could do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he finally gave me a shot. We took 350 10 amp hour batteries up to St. Paul 8 years ago. It's my 8-year anniversary this year. And that year, Humminbird just came out with the 7. Mm-hmm. The digital. Mm-hmm. So on the way home from St. Paul, I was getting all the phone calls from the Humminbird guys because the lead acid batteries were only lasting 4 hours on that.
And they were heavy.
But they were only lasting 4 hours. So our 10 amp hour would give them 13, 14 hours on that. And that was, we sold out at St. Paul in a day and a half, 300 batteries. And it was wild. I mean, back when St. Paul was St. Paul,
right? I
had 4 deep in the aisle, and they were just throwing cash at us to get a 10 amp hour battery that year. It was magical that year.
I remember when the 7 came out. You said 8 years ago. Let's see, 2000. I wonder if I was at that show. I need to do a little addition here, subtraction. We'll start with 924 minus.
It had to be 2017, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So that
was first year.
Trying to remember. We came back from Alabama for Christmas one year. Nope. It wouldn't have been then. Anyway, I remember the time, and I remember it being the battery problem was such a headache. Yeah. Because, especially in the cold, I don't know that I think those batteries just got tired to boot. It seems like you could get a season if you were lucky out of them, and if you were a hardcore guy and on the water 3-4 days a week, you weren't getting that. So
it was just, and now, and it just, the electronics world seemed to evolve so quickly.
Yeah.
And then, with the advent of bringing lithium into the game, it was a perfect storm, and it just blew up everything, And at the same time, after that ice show, I got into touch with Chad Hoover, who was, KBF was huge at the time.
Right.
And, he caught onto it right away, and we just electrified the kayak industry. That was coming from St. Paul, doing that, and then going into the kayak world. It was incredible.
So did you, you went to that show? Was it under, you went to the ice show? Were you an employee of Dakota Lithium then?
I was a contractor.
Yeah. And are you an employee now?
Quasi, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Quasi, yes.
It's probably smart to keep it that way, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know either. We'll see.
Well, it's certainly changed, but I'm thinking back at that time because I was doing some boat rigging. I've built and rigged boats since I was early married, so it's always been a desire to get that figured out. And I can put together a boat front to back now, brand new, off the line. In fact, I get grumpy with new boats because they come with wires ran and things are set up still kind of the old way.
Right.
And I'm essentially ripping everything out and starting over.
Because you don't want the interference.
Interference is everything.
Everything.
Yep.
It's just like the new fad now is, quote unquote, the 16 volt is going to give you a better picture. And
I have no experience with it.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
What's going to give you a better picture is direct harness from your battery source to your electronics. You know what I mean? Voltage, because all the monitors have a transistor in it, so you could throw 20 volts at it, and it's going to knock it down to 12.8. You know what I mean? The only thing that higher voltage is going to give you is more capacity, more runtime. So be careful of the marketing.
Well, and no matter what battery you choose to put in a boat, you still need to have things rigged correctly. And I think the best advice I can give anybody as a new boat owner is know your boat.
Know your boat, know your harness.
Get in there, do the work yourself. It is intimidating at first, but I guess what helped me is I broke it down by an individual task. And I would say probably I say the most swear words when I'm trying to run a main line from the front of the boat to the dash and from the dash to the back,
and they don't make it easy.
They don't make it easy.
No, because they're the ones who are putting isolators and splitters in there. And
zip ties, which clogs the entire thing up. But it's a very valuable skill to have it, and it's not complicated electrician's work. It's just positive to negative, and if you want to be wise about maintaining your units, you want to put a fuse panel in that'll reduce clutter. It's a protection. It's organization. There's all sorts of important parts to that, but don't be afraid to dig in and do it. And there's a lot of great videos on YouTube University if you want to know how to do this, that, or the other thing. Plug that search in. But so before we get too deep into that side of things, so there was a day, and I think there's probably still some people I've talked to that are hanging on to this fear of the risk of fires. And that was a thing early on. I think there was one or two situations that were likely not due to the battery, but something happened.
User error. Probably user error. And the lithiums now are lithium iron phosphate. So it's not lithium ion, isolated. Lithium ion phosphate. So the phosphate cuts down or mitigates the risk of that happening. We don't say the F word. You know what I'm saying? That's as bad as the other word. So, it's so that's a big thing is your chemistry. One of the top electronics companies executives I was in an email thread with, and he asked me not to publish the email, but in all their scientific testing, voltage doesn't matter. It's the wiring that matters. Having it clean direct line to your power source is what's going to give you the cleanest picture on your electronics right now. And they've done the scientific testing, you know? So that's huge. And we get a lot of questions about that, you know?
So as the batteries have evolved, you know, there's I think most of them come standard with some type of built-in management system, right? What's
BMS boards.
Yep. How does that work?
It's just a management system, you know, inside the battery that regulates either the charging or the discharge. You know, it's just pretty standard industry stuff now. You know, the wild thing is that lithium is almost a commodity. Lithium batteries are almost, you know, nothing special anymore, even though they're special in terms of compared to SLAs. But it's a commodity now. It's 8 years we've been in this game, you know. And what I like to credit with Dakota with is we're the ones who basically made lithium Main Street, made it available for everybody.
That's right.
You know? So I think that's, you know, I said it to Terry, and I said, you know, very few times in your in your life, especially in your career, you get the chance to make an absolute difference or change the trajectory of a whole industry. And I think that's what we did 8 years ago. We changed the trajectory of the whole fishing industry, the whole outdoor industry.
Well, without that change in direction, Stormy, you don't see guys running 7 units.
Right.
Because there's no way to do that without the lithium technology to support it, or however many units, you know, pick your poison. But I mean,
you think about that, you think about the electric only game. Okay. Now, when we were, you know, 4 years ago, when we were getting in to a bunch of clubs in the Southeast, Central East over there, where they had the electric only series, dude, they were running nine SLEs in a like a rowboat type build. You know what I mean? Just incredible. And the amount of money, the amount of weight that we took out of these electric only boats back in the day, it changed their whole game. You know, it changed their whole game.
Well, and as these batteries have evolved, it's been an interesting development in the industry to watch, because they're still pretty expensive on the battery front. If you look at the upfront costs, I know where we're going to go with this, but it really hasn't really deterred a lot of people. You know, they're like, well, in your case, Dakota Lithium comes with an 11-year warranty. Right. So how many sets of lead acid batteries are you going to buy in 11 years?
Not even, I mean, that's true. But another way to look at it is your top lead acid batteries are $600 now.
And you know? 600 pounds.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, our 100 amp hour now is right around that price. So they really have come down.
They have come down.
You know, they have come down and make it affordable with the same 11-year warranty. So how do you not? You know?
And I think that's a selling point where you are going to have this battery for that long, right? You could even take it out of the boat that you sell to put it in your new boat, and it's gonna whatever your plan is. That's a good way to make it work.
And the wild thing is that as I was opening up sales channels, as I was trying to work it everywhere and anywhere, the pool industry. Okay, the pool cleaners, okay? Who would have thought, right? I had this woman call me crying, thanking me, because they have carts, okay? So they go to all these houses to clean their pools. They have carts. They have a battery. They have their vacuum system on a cart. And she had to drag, you know, and a lot of these backyard pools are elevated. So she had to drag her cart up all these stairs carrying the heavy lead acid battery. We sent her a 54 amp hour, and it changed her life. You know what I mean? That's the wild stuff. And there's 100 stories about in industries and markets that you would never think about where lithium batteries would play a part. It's amazing. I'm
curious if you can speak to as the prices are coming down, so seems to be the footprint. Yes. Like we're getting into higher capacity batteries in a smaller size.
Energy we call it energy density. So yeah, so like our new hundreds are you know almost group 24 size. The 135 is Group 24 size. The 3660 is Group 31 size, which used to, remember that 3663 was big at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely the footprints are coming down. Where will that, I think there has to be a bottom of how small you're going to make these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that the boat manufacturers are still living in the lead acid days.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The way they wire the harnesses, the battery boxes. So you have to, you have to make a standardized size so that it'll work in all different applications. Like in the walleye world, the Lund boats underneath the rod lockers,
Yeah.
a nightmare, for them guys.
But what a blessing to have a smaller battery, a lighter battery, and you need 3 of them in the front of the boat. That's not going to affect the performance now.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
you have 3, lead acid batteries. You need a forklift to get them in and out of there, and they're messy.
And the way they operate, you remember back in the day with the lead acids, you're watching your screen, all of a sudden you're getting all these little, interference stuff, and then it goes, as the batteries drain, it gets worse and worse, and then it goes out. With the lithiums, you got straight power until it's not, and that's the beauty of that.
Yeah, when it's dead, it shuts off.
Yeah.
those other ones, they kind of like tease you for a little while. Let's talk about clean power. One of the changes I made, I had a Ranger Z20 here a couple of years ago, and I had that boat for almost 10 years. And I had some type of phantom power problem. I didn't know what it was. I was using all of the infrastructure that was there when I bought the boat, so I was just assuming everything was right. I think I had a one of those expensive interstates, like the $350 whatever, real heavy.
The copper top, not the copper. What were they? The interstate with the green
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, I spent the money and it was junk. I ruined it in a matter of 6 months.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, this has to stop. So I decided to, over the winter, because that's when you do stuff in Minnesota to your boat. My son and I, we cleaned that boat out, took every battery out. We looked for every cable. The only cable we left in it were the trolling motor cables, because that was one piece,
right,
front to back. Like, I can trust that. And I never had a problem with that. Well, as I dug into this, I learned that a lot of the wires were there was hot spots where it had melted, and it really wasn't a fire issue, but like you could just see that it had changed color and got hot, and
right,
it might have been over whatever. So I ran a brand new wire. I got I bought a spool of that 6-gauge tinned marine grade wire. There's another way to put that, whatever it is, but it was for 60 feet, it was almost $300.
Oof.
So, but it was like built for boats, right? Double coated, double insulated, and 6-gauge heavy duty stuff. So that was coming straight off of my battery. I had 2 kill switches installed, and the reason I did 2 because now I wanted to run my house, like the bilge, the live well, the lights, all that kind of stuff off of the house battery that was connected to the motor, right? And I did not want to pull electronics juice off of that battery, or I have some friends that use 2 batteries rigged in parallel for their electronics and their crank. I think I think they can probably get away with that to an extent, but I wanted to eliminate every single potential problem because I was so frustrated with things.
Yeah.
So I set it up with a fuse panel and that main wire that I explained to you, and I used the Dakota Lithium 135 amp hour and that 24 series footprint, and like all of my problems went away.
No interference, bro.
0 interference.
Yep.
Now, what do you think about wires touching each other inside the gunnel? I've heard that can cause interference.
That's above my pay grade, bro. That's,
I just
what I mean?
I mean, they're coated in plastic. It shouldn't matter.
But, does it stop all the frequency from coming out?
Probably
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't have an answer.
That's why they can't bury electrical wires, right? Because I always ask, out in the Midwest or, why do they still have telephone poles and electric poles? You know what I mean? Because they can't bury it.
How about that? Okay.
So there's got to be something coming off of them. So
I don't know that I've had that create a problem. But I do. They do say try to separate your Ethernet cables from your power cables. Like if you can.
So the biggest, I see a lot of problems where I would have never thought of, but it's where everything comes and meets up in the cluster on the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
That's where a lot of guys find the interferences in that. Because if you ever take a dashboard off and see all the all the wires that come up into there, it's a madhouse.
It is, and you have to. I mean, if it doesn't turn you into an alcoholic, it might. But if you try pulling all those off and you need to reestablish those connections, that's a lot of work. But but just a simple mistake in that reconnection, or as those wires age, I mean, that boat is bouncing up and down. Things are going to happen. So that, again, plays to the know your boat. Dig in and take a look at it. And I found connections inside my dash that just needed a new clip.
Right.
And it was simple,
Yep.
Okay, clip this one off, put a new one on, and it was waterproof.
But, and I think, like you talk about the Phantom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes we get these guys, and no matter what they do, you know what I mean? No matter what they do, they still got this Phantom draw somewhere, and they just can't fix it.
So frustrating.
It is.
I've been there.
Yeah,
but because I went to exclusive power, isolated power, I had all of that gone. Now I had a master power switch. I think that's an important thing. If you left that on, I don't think there's a graph made that doesn't just draw power.
Right.
I mean, they just naturally, and it's small. Like it's not going to turn itself on. But if it's connected and that circuit is left open, they will draw batteries down.
Yeah. Well, see, so we've evolved. And what I really enjoyed doing was coming up with different combinations for the tournament guys to make it simple, the least amount of batteries, to do the job. And, we got guys. So the 135s were the staple, 312-volt 135s, And then we had, the charger issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had a year of that, and that was a year from hell,
And by that, you're talking about the crank battery charge or the...
I'm talking about another brand's.
The onboard charger that doesn't
right.
charge a 36?
No. It'll charge a 36, but so what we have is what we call a middle battery syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 312 volts in series, there's always one. It's going to chase, there's always one battery that's either going to be low or going to be high, and the other two chase that battery because it's the least common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an issue for a long time until the chargers got better charging 312-volt batteries, So that was a big issue. I mean, I can't tell you the year I had 2 years ago,
I've heard about it. I can tell you. Yeah, I've heard about it from other people too about how that affected things. But hey, before we go much further, let's do a real brief explanation of the difference between rigging in series and rigging in parallel and why you'd want to do that.
Okay.
So my experience with parallel is generally, I think that you could do it in a boat, but I like to buy a battery that's large enough to carry the day.
Well, that's yes and no, but so our 3660s, okay?
Mm-hmm. Trolling motor batteries.
Trolling motor battery. So I have a bunch of elites who are running two 3660s in parallel. So that'll give them, so when you run a battery in parallel, you add the amp hours together. So you get 120 amp hours in a 36-volt package. So they'll run two of those in parallel, and then they'll run a 135 for the electronics. Now we have the 320. So my tournament setup now is two 3660s in parallel and a 320 to do all the graphs. So you're doing three batteries in a battery box, you know?
So what used to be the case for trolling motors is you had three 12-volt batteries rigged in a series.
Right.
And that was to create those three batteries rigged that way, created a 36-volt battery.
36-volt system, right.
Yep. So there is a difference in series and parallel. And,
correct.
I mean, to do it justice, I think we'd need a a picture here, or some type of schematic. But ultimately, what's interesting, what you're explaining is you're still having multiple batteries power the trolling motor,
Correct.
but because they have the 36 volt established in one box, you rig them in parallel so that you have extended amp hours.
Right. So we call the 3660 a single pack. So you have, instead of 3, you have one battery, 36 volts. And so it's 60 amp hours to give these tournament guys, especially when they start down in Florida in the grass and they're just cranking through the grass. It really eats up. You know what I mean? So we do 236 volts in parallel, which gives you 120 amp hours of capacity. So it's still, the voltage is still the same, 36 volts, but you combine your amp hours. So it gives you 120 amp hours.
Now, to figure out how much you're going to consume, what does like a Minn Kota Ultrex, for example, what does that pull for amp hours? Do we know?
Come on now, are you really? I don't know.
I don't either. I'll tell you what, I can look it up, but
You can look it up.
this is important for people to figure out, because
you figure. I think the peak is 50 something per hour. You know what I'm saying?
and that's at full power.
That's at 10. You know, grinding. So you can do the math. But I think the industry, the lithium industry, is pretty much industrialized or made it simple that you don't have to do the math anymore. They come up with a battery that'll give you the proper capacity.
You're right, mid-50s.
Yeah. So,
Well, here's an example of the way I determine the battery usage for my graphs. And I've written about this in In-Fisherman magazine. We've talked about discovering your amp draw in your boat,
Right.
so that you can select the right battery.
correct.
So what I did, and this is, again, I'm just using Google as a resource, and it does bring you that information very quickly. How many amps does a Solix 12 draw? How many amps does an Apex 13 draw? And whatever's on your boat, whatever configuration you have 5 units, 4 units, 3 units, 2 units, whatever. Check out those amp hour or that amp draw per unit. Add them together. And then that's going to give you your
Peak watts.
your peak,
So
everything
then
that
you
need.
want to turn amp hours into watts. It's the watt hours. And that'll give you a better numerical time of capacity, the watt hours.
Yep. Then I determine how long I plan to fish on average. I want to have 12 hours of power or more per day.
Right.
And so by adding everything up, I think the Solix 12 pulls, I think, like 3.2, something like that. Okay, so you multiply that by 5 in our case.
Right.
Okay, so you're looking at, we'll just call that 17 amp hours, 17 amps per hour I need to cover. So if I want to fish for 8 hours, see here, I just don't do math, Stormy. I need to have my calculator. Can you do that off the top of your head?
No.
Let's see.
Even Sister Pat drilled in the multiplications, but no.
Let's see here. I updated my phone, and the calculator's different now. Doggone it. All right, 17 times 8. We'll just use this as an example. That means I need 136 amp hours.
Correct.
So if you're going to you want to fish for 8 hours, that's cutting it pretty close on that 135. You may want to put 2 in there for a double,
or get the 320.
Get the 320.
And you don't have to worry about a thing.
How big is the footprint on the 320?
Not very big. It's probably about, I know how big it is. It's as big as our old 100 used to be, so Group 31.
Oh, so it's a standard deep cycle size.
Right.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to go for days on that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, bro. The way, well,
with 6 or 7 units, maybe not.
Well, now, but they did it. You can only have 55 inches now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that, and it's not the deucer that draws the power.
It's a screen.
It's the screens that draw the power. So,
I mean, Mega Live and Live Scope, those things are 1 amp or less.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't much.
Did you see at the show? Were you at St. Paul?
Yeah.
Did you see the guy behind me?
In your booth?
No.
Or the other side?
The other side of me.
Okay.
Ice Master.
Yes, I think I do remember.
So he had that big 24-inch screen.
Yes.
That thing is that thing was beautiful, bro.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but I mean,
And he ran that for 8 hours on the 54. You know what I mean?
So I've committed to evolving with fishing electronics. Okay. Some of this stuff kind of is like, really? What's this other? There's another that, and I think it's a good thing because of the clarity. Is it NTB? This big graph these guys are putting on their boat. I understand it all, but I just don't know how far is too far. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm in full support.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with restrictions on this stuff. At the top level, there ought to be a standard.
But how we're Americans, right? What do as Americans?
We innovate.
We innovate. We take everything to the next level all the time. There's no stopping it. I have no idea what's coming out next, but can you just imagine the next iteration of Live? What that's going to be like?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know that the next iteration of Live is going to remain legal. If I had to guess. And this is my example.
All right. So now you say that, right? So now you have these electronic companies, okay? Pouring millions and millions and millions of dollars into research and development for these things, right?
Yep.
They're the main sponsors for all the professional series. How are you going to tell these companies we're going to restrict your technology?
I completely agree with you. Here's an example. The muskie community was the first community to outlaw the technology, and they did it middle of the season. And I have no problem telling them this, but the muskie, and I love to muskie fish, so let me be clear. I'm not like coming down on somebody because of what they love to pursue, but let's be honest, an organization that was largely struggling for relevance was not top of the heap, and maybe that's the nature of that side of fishing anyways, but they just simply shot themselves in the foot because there is not going to be an electronics company that would want to spend ad dollars with them because it made their products illegal.
Right.
Now, you want to talk to ethics, like there's a discussion to be had, a debate to be had therein. You don't do it middle of the season, and it looks like a bunch of the old guys got mad at the young guys because they were kicking their butt. That's the perception of what happened.
And that's and a lot of that drama was last year in the elites, right?
Yeah.
with the rookie class. You can't tell me. So the big gripe is, okay, I can't watch professional fishing anymore because their heads are down watching live scope. What were they doing before live scope?
They were looking at 2D.
Right.
So before live came out, I remember being at the St. Lawrence River, and those guys were using their 2D sonar basically the same way we do ice fishing, right?
Right.
And we had complaints about that. So on this program, we have long griped about this drama that continues to come up.
I think it's such a facade.
It is.
I really do.
Well,
it's such a.
I'll be honest. I have you and I both probably have friends that are Elite Series anglers that have likely chosen that their ability to adapt has stopped, and because of that, they don't want to be outdone by somebody that commits to adapting.
So what's going to happen this season, when the new crop of rookies come up, and we've created this ourselves.
We have created this ourselves. You're 100% right.
We incentivized, we grew, we sponsored.
We created junior fishing, high school fishing, college. That's right. So these kids that are now old enough to compete at the elite level have had 10 to 15 years of hardcore tournament experience.
Right.
And we're just at the precipice of that, where that is the norm moving forward.
That's true. And I don't, the learning curve for rookies has been, because of all the years that they've had hardcore tournament fishing, that when they come to the elites, yes, the pressure is different. Yes, the media is different. But they've handled it time and time again. You can't tell me the opens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That was such a great thing. I will. It's to be determined if the new open style is better than what it was. But when they switched over to that last year's style, the EQ thing, I heard from a few people like, "Oh, it's a rich man's sport now." I'm like, well, you're not wrong. It's kind of been that way for a while, but you don't want somebody coming into the elites that doesn't have the over-the-road experience, the financial experience, and they're capable. That proves to the Elite Series that you're capable of living that lifestyle. Because there's a lot of broken hearts and sad stories about anglers that went broke, mortgaged their house 2 times.
I think there's such, just like anything professional, right? I think there's just such a misconception out there what the life is. You know what I mean? It's not sexy. It's not pretty.
We've been there. I mean, I haven't lived the life as an angler, but I followed the Elite Series.
3 years on the road following these boys around and around the sun. You know what I mean? It's a grind. Bro.
It is a grind, and that's definitely a catchphrase that I think was born out of that. But they're necessary.
Yes,
and it's important. It's important for any new technology to be proven on the most unforgiving type of scenario that they can come up with, and that's largely professional fishing.
Correct.
Walleyes, muskies, bass. That's where they get hammered the most.
The way I look at this, being in this game now for a while, is that everything flows downhill from tournament fishing.
Yes.
Everything flows downhill. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's just no other way to put that. You can say, blah, blah. Listen, tournament people, they have sponsors. Sponsors need to make the money. You know what I mean? It's we're Americans. It's capitalism. Mm-hmm. Capitalism flows in the fishing industry. It just is.
You want to know if you're going to invest in a product and batteries to support it, you want to know that it's proven.
Right.
And it goes through some pretty rigorous testing for sure, but then it's proven on the battlefield, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's really it isn't just electronics. It's rods, it's reel, it's line, it's a jack plate, it's a prop, it's everything.
You put some things on a boat and let them go out to Erie. Let them go out to Champlain.
Right. Stuff breaks.
Let them go out to Ontario. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a very true thing. And I know that the Elites, I don't think they've been back to a Great Lake in some time, because the last time they went, I think a couple boats got swamped and it just
St. Lawrence is basically an Ontario.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
And especially now that they moved it back east a little bit. You know what I mean? So
such a cool area, isn't it?
Oh, dude.
If there is a bucket list destination, you got to put the St. Lawrence River near the top.
Smallmouth candy, brother.
And giants.
Giants.
But there's big muskies there. The walleye fishing's nothing to sniff at.
No.
Everything is big in that river.
Yeah.
In that part of the lake, it's something else. But so let's get back to some battery talk here. Something I've always appreciated about Dakota Lithium is that you have a size for everything. Yeah. And while we largely think about that, it was built for boats, it's available for only boats. No, they power the RV side of things is a really big area.
Yeah, we have a 560 amp hour for RVs. Mm-hmm. RVs is a tough market, but we're growing in that market. Mm-hmm. We're growing. We have guys down in the South that are just RV isolated, so.
Well, interesting experience I had. I went to last fall, so a little over a year ago now, I went to Jay Seaman's Uncle Mark's outpost up on Lake of the Woods. And that property is off-grid.
Right.
It has a solar charging system that charges a number of Dakota Lithium batteries.
Right.
That house functions on Dakota Lithium.
Yep, that's a Dakota Lithium cabin, without a doubt.
It's pretty neat to dig in to see how that works, but what do you have some type of estimation on, how would you calculate what kind of power they need?
So what we do is we ask the customer to do what's called an energy audit. Mm-hmm. So you want to add up your peak draw at the hardest time, so you know what your peak draw is going to be, and then we can match the amp hour capacity to that draw. So that's basic. It's an audit, just like anything else. You got to do your homework, get the draw right, and then we can match your amp hours to that. So
in a boating situation, we kind of talked about that. So my audit would have been searching out the amp draw for each unit, compiling all that data, and making a decision there. If you're looking at a new boat, does it make better sense, or re-rigging your boat, repowering your boat in general, does it make sense to always shoot high?
You can shoot, yeah. I would shoot a little high, 10% high, but you don't have to, because, you know, you're going to bring it in unless you're, you know, if you do your energy audit, right, you know what your draw is going to be. So you can match your amp hours to that audit. Then you can, you know what I'm saying? Be a little high. So just in case you want to do a couple hours more, you can do that. But the energy audit pretty much dials it into what you need capacity wise.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk charging. This is a question that I ask myself, and I often don't have a good answer. I have 2 winters ago, I left my boat plugged in on a maintainer style battery charger, onboard charger, and I never had a problem with those batteries. I know that you're supposed to unplug lithiums from the trickle type chargers.
Correct.
So talk to me about what is the proper maintenance with lithiums.
With lithium, it would be you charge them to 100%, take the charger off. Just let them sit. Mm-hmm. When you're ready to go back out, hit them up again. So I don't think in our industry, you know, if you go from season to season, what do you got? 3 months, really?
Yeah.
Right?
3 to 4. Right.
3 to 4 months. So 2 months in, you go, you give them another shot, just charge them back up. You know, because with lithiums, they like to work. Mm-hmm. They like to charge. They like to recharge. They like to charge. They like to recharge. Lithiums like to work. And that's what keeps them in shape and keeps them going. So you touch them up 2 months in, you're good. Mm-hmm. It's very simple, really.
And they charge pretty quickly.
Relatively speaking, yes.
I suppose the bigger the battery, the more power capacity it takes.
But then you can, you know, 1C charging, you can match the amp hour to the charge rate also, you know. So you do a 20 amp charger on a 135, it goes quick. Mm-hmm. You know, you do a 50 amp charge on a 135, it goes even quicker, you know. There are theories that say the quicker you charge a lithium, the more degradation to the cells it does instead of nice, easy charge. Mm-hmm. But in our industry, you got to fish the next day. You got to get your stuff charged, you know? So there's that, you know?
What do you have anybody you're working with that has had the same set of batteries in the boat for the duration for multiple years?
So Hoyer, John Hoyer, mm-hmm. he was from the beginning. He still had a 170. One of our original 170 amp hours in his boat up until last year, I think. Mm-hmm. You know, so he's probably the one who's had the oldest products mm-hmm. in the catalog.
Still using them.
To now, still using them, yeah.
John Hoyer is a professional walleye angler, fishes on the NWT. Let me enunciate. And he is a fantastic outdoorsman. Like all around, his nose is in it. He understands how it works, but even better guy.
He's probably one of the smartest anglers that I have dealt with. Mm-hmm. He's been a mentor to me from the beginning. You know, he's just been a great guy. Mm-hmm. He really has.
He's very in tune to his rig and how everything works. Like most pros have to be.
He's particular.
He is. He knows what he needs.
Down to the minuscule stuff. He's particular.
Well, here's an example. You know, we talk briefly about how the forward-facing sonar has impacted, you know, the bass world. We're to see how that's going to play out over the next 12 months. We talked about the musky side of it, but interestingly, I think the impact on the walleye business has been a very positive impact.
Agreed. They've seemed to embrace it very well.
Let me explain to you why I think this is so important. So the walleye world for years, and it still is to an extent, it's struggling with relevancy. I don't know that it's managed correct. You know, to me, it would, back in the days when In-Fisherman managed a PWT, that was the heyday of walleye fishing. And you know, I don't know where the breakdown occurred, but somewhere along the line, it just wasn't regarded as highly as bass fishing. And I guess I can understand that to a point. But really, in my opinion, the biggest hang up inside of the competitive walleye world is live bait. And I'm going to get around to my point here. I'm going to draw this all together so it makes good sense. And I would love it if they would just not use live bait, because that would drive a little bit of innovation on the bait side. It would drive innovation. It would create content. It would create value for an organization such, let's just say Strike King, for example. They might start making some soft plastics that are unique to walleye fishing, because they're being used in the pro levels and they're teaching people how to move away from live bait. Now, you don't wish failure on these mom and pop bait shops that depend on live bait sales. I don't know that would change necessarily, but if you want to make walleye fishing exciting, do what John Hoyer did on Lake Erie last year. If it's not the only, it's one of the only top touring walleye victories on a Great Lake casting.
Oh yeah.
And it was a really cool win.
Yeah.
He uses technology, uses the particular kind of they call them a jig minnow for the most part, but something along those lines, and didn't use live bait.
Right.
So you had relevancy.
It's there. It's getting there.
Yes.
I think that is evolving into a artificial only series.
I hope
we
so.
will see.
I hope so.
I don't know if it's. See, my theory in quote unquote marketing is you have to treat the Midwest as its own entity.
Yes.
You have to.
That's the walleye belt.
Yes. You just have to treat it as its own entity. Walleye is king. You know what I mean? As big as bass fishing is in the Northeast, in the Southeast, in the South, I think walleye fishing from the middle of the country is just as popular, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What was that live series that tried to start?
Head to head.
Head to head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, I'm a numbers watcher, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Those numbers on head to head, watching live, was incredible.
They were busy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. It was a fresh take.
Yes, it was a fresh take. And, Uncle Johnny owns NWT too. I don't understand why that isn't getting bassified to an extent. We have a perfect example of how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're working on understanding that, but
well, it has to change.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us that have followed the professional side of fishing for so long, I wouldn't say I'm burned out on it, but a part of it's like, here we go again, more drama here, somebody's pissed about that. And, I think that if there was another destination where people could go and consume that type of content, I think that drama would start to cease because it would impact their numbers. And people just I know people are tired of it. They don't have time listening to somebody that fishes for a living whining about.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think a big thing, like you said, was the evolution of Hoyer and Dewey casting for wins, not trolling. Because how could you do TV?
Yeah,
trolling. You know what I'm saying? You just can't do it.
It's not easy. And I've actually been in a boat before while they tried to film a trolling event, and that was FLW Walleye Tour out of Escanaba. And it's like, the guy is 100 yards away and he's waving you off because you're like,
because his spread is because
a mile wide
out there.
Now, I do think there's walleye excitement inside of that, and I think a creative person could figure out a way to do that. But he's not going to just pull up to the side of the boat and hop in and film.
Right.
He'd have to be with that guy for the day, and it's more complicated. Walleye fishing,
the science behind trolling is incredible.
There's books written on it.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So there's a lot to know and a lot to write about. And I think In-Fisherman, if Doug were here, he'd tell you that there's a lot of information that was captured inside of the PWT and used as a catalyst to create content in In-Fisherman magazine and on the television show to help people catch more fish. Yeah. And I think that we're at a point in that side of the industry where it could use a shot in the arm.
Yeah.
I think forward-facing sonar is going to help that. But now let's see how presentations evolve to accommodate that on waters that maybe were traditionally trolling waters or traditionally live bait waters.
So 2 summers ago, I made the trip out to North Dakota, and I fished with Dewey, and we're up there, and he's on the bow of the boat with forward-facing sonar, right? And Hoyer came up with this slip bobber deal with a hook and a worm. Okay, so Dewey's on the bow of the boat, Stormy, 50 feet to the right. You know, I got on is a slip bobber and a hook and a worm, right? 50 feet to the right, cast out there. Whoa. He says, Stormy, 75 feet to the left. So that's the way with the game we were playing up there on Devils. It was absolutely smashing them.
Yeah, but
Smash.
how much fun?
Oh, dude. And that's the, you know, and again, coming down from red, I don't know if I could ever go back to fishing lines again. You know what I mean? On a Markham or on a Vexlar. I don't know if I could do it. You know what I mean? It would seem like not even having anything out there, you know? I just did the update with the Lowrance. Oh, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. It was.
This will be an interesting year. I've had a little, now that Mega Life 2 and the new Explore units are out, I can talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
I've had some experience with it. A lot of new things coming, but like we're gonna have it's an equalization year. There's gonna be balance is restored to an extent. Now, long overdue perhaps, but it doesn't just, you can't just snap your fingers. And I think there is this, I want to point this out, and this is an interesting reality to the Humminbird evolution is Garmin patented everything. It was a very, on their behalf, it was wise to protect their developments and protect their investment. And
then there's all stories and backstories about all that, too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know,
I don't know enough to talk about them, but I've heard the stories.
I probably wouldn't either.
I don't want to talk about them.
No, exactly.
But now we're getting to a point where things are evolving even further. And we talked earlier, like, is the next advancement, the next development going to be what pushes technology to the unethical side of the discussion? There's already people that think it's there, but it's largely people that haven't had the time or resources to use it. And so this year, I think is going to, I think the balance is going to be restored across the board, and you're going to have 3 brands that are generally equal on a lot of fronts, and people are going to have opportunities to see this so they can make an informed decision. And by that result, the prices are going to be coming down. They're not going to like plummet, but the balance will be coming into the expense side of things.
I think you're right.
So what I would love, and I've said this on the show ad nauseum, I'm not even scared to say it again, get out there and learn it. Make yourself learn it, and you're going to discover that it is not turn it on and a fish jump in the boat.
No, you still got to jiggle it to make them bite, right?
And you
can see them. You know how many fish up at Red Lake that I saw from 40 feet away come scurrying on the bottom? Jig, 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 jig. Zoom, they're gone.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
Yep. There's no guarantee.
But you can see them, and that's the cool part. You're playing videos. You're learning.
You're capturing information and learning to apply it. And, you know, I do find it enjoyable. Of course, my generation largely was the, invented video games, more or less, invented the internet. And I get that maybe getting into the fish house, sitting in a tree stand is a chance to separate yourself from technology. I can appreciate that. But when I go fishing, Stormy, I want to catch fish.
What your cellular tree cameras don't count as technology, right?
I do. Dude, I don't know what I do without them.
You know what I'm saying?
You know, you just have to adapt. And this last summer, my son and I committed to going out once a week and just focusing on the technology. Yeah. And it takes that. It takes practice.
Do you think it's that hard though? I mean, honestly, once you get it set up, you know, you get your clarity right. You get all your depths right. I mean,
no, you're right.
They're making it almost idiot proof now.
It is pretty easy, but you still have to it has to be mounted on your boat correctly, whether you're on a pole or the trolling motor. Your mechanical ability to understand where the trolling motor is looking, and the other thing is making a good cast. Yeah. I've learned that I'm not a good caster.
You don't,
hitting once out of 6 times,
50 feet. You know, nope, didn't do that one.
No,
you know what I mean.
But you know, I do think you're right. It is easier to dial it in than it used to be. But I think the line is like you still have to get out and make it work.
You got to jiggle it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You still got to make them bright, bro. Mm-hmm. You got to make them bite. You can see them no matter how many fish you see. You still got to make them bite, and that's the art of it all, right?
Has it taken the fun out of it for you at all?
No,
not for me either.
It's only elevated my fun watching it. Like I think I was talking to you on the phone when I was in the hut, right? I mean.
I got to go.
You could take, if I had to choose between everything, okay? My passion is ice fishing. Sitting there, especially with live, going from a Markham, a Vexlar, to a live, to the Lowrance live. Dude, it's just, how can you not, you know what I mean? You're watching them come scurrying across the bottom, you know, jig, 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 jig. You find out what you're doing wrong.
What's your opinion on the future of flashers, if you care to share it?
Well, if they're still going to be entry level, you know what I mean? You know, till everybody can afford a flasher. You know, some flashers are more than
Not a $700 Vexlar. I mean, they have those.
Yeah,
they're real nice.
True. That's true. You got the digital stuff. You know, like I just told you before, I don't know if I could go back. Like I'll tell you what, last year I was up at Devils and I ran out of juice for my live. And I had my Vexlar for the backup.
Wait a minute. The Dakota Lithium guy ran out of juice?
I was out there for a long time.
Come on, man.
I know. Well, it happens, right?
It does.
It happens. As a matter of fact, my spare I left it in the lodge that day. So I did have the juice. I just didn't have it handy.
That was an easy joke.
I know.
You teed that up for
I
me.
know. I know. I got you. But I don't know if I could do lines again, bro. I mean, you know, seeing the line, making them converge, and then poof, gone, right? This way, I don't know, bro. I don't think I would enjoy it as much as I do now with the live.
Well, the thing, the reality to fishing is we go to catch fish. We go to recharge. We go to pursue a passion, whatever it is. But you can have fun without catching fish. But I don't.
Dude, whoever said that?
You're right. Like I don't. I guess whenever you see people taking pictures of sunsets, you know they're not shooting deer or they're not seeing fish or whatever it is.
Unless it's a spectacular sunset. There is those times. You know
there
what I mean?
are those times, but if we get down to brass tacks and everybody was forced to be honest, when they go fishing, they want to catch fish.
Oh, absolutely.
So why not put every advantage that you can possibly come up with in your favor and utilize electronics? And if you do now, and I say all this, and I do appreciate if somebody doesn't want to use something, if they would like to do it the way that they've grown up doing it, if the flasher is what makes them happy, then
God bless them.
Then go do it.
Exactly.
In fact, good for you. That's what I want. It's when we have this backflow of
oh, it's not real fish.
it's not you're cheating.
You're cheating.
Yeah, that's what my point was to our commitment to learning it. Go learn it and then tell me you don't want to.
Right. Exactly.
Don't sit there in your high chair and say it's unethical until you've mastered it and have an opinion.
You're cheating using that. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
You know, it's
that's to me it's jealousy. I think there's a lot of that, and I think that stems out of social media.
Social media is horrible sometimes, bro.
It's part of our lives. I have to use it every day.
Oh, me too. Me too.
But I don't particularly love it, and
it's just you have keyboard warriors is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And bots, they may not even be real people.
How does that work though? How does a bot work?
I don't know.
People say that, you know what I mean? Oh, it's a bot.
Well, I do think there is. I think there is a spread of disinformation that occurs that is largely generated by that type of thing, and that could be a person that's managing 75 accounts, right? In one keystroke, it goes out to all those accounts. But I do believe that there is some manipulation occurring in the ranks of social media that's not entirely human.
Yeah, I would agree with that's algorithm stuff. But I go back to the argument again that forward facing sonar is killing television viewership. What were they doing before forward facing sonar? They were still looking at their screens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It boggles my mind when they use that.
Well, you know what? It's a classic case of people forgetting history.
And everybody go, "Oh yeah, that's true.
That's true." Well, let's without making too many people angry here. Let's have a brief discussion on the future of competitive fishing right now. We don't have. I mean, you and I both have friends, and with respect to those friends, we're not going to tarnish anybody necessarily. But what's happened in the last year? Has it been a little disappointing?
No.
No, you don't think
No,
so?
I don't think so. I think a lot of it is made up drama. A lot of it is, like you said, misinformation. Being out there, living with it. You know what I mean? Were there instances? Yes. You know what I mean? Were things handled correctly by tournament directors, by series promoters? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Were the anglers given a fair shot who were put in the spotlight? There's 3 sides to every story, right? And when you have absolute power to make a decision about somebody's life, you better be very careful how you do it,
I think that right there, that's the statement that largely forms a lot of my opinions. So that's the foundation within the industry. And this is something that you deal with, I deal with. There are people that make decisions that can't set up a bait caster or can't launch a boat or can't shoot a bow or whatever. They may have an interest, but they don't have the level of experience that would, in my mind, justify them calling shots. Now, we have to bow that knee once in a while.
Well,
but there's a lot of inexperience calling shots.
True. Okay. Now, I just had this debate as a matter. You know what I'm saying? And, that's a shot thrown at one of the major bass series, okay? That, quote unquote, no fishermen are running the company. And I say, look how many fishing series have gone down, aren't here anymore because fishermen were running a business. It's a business. It's a multi-million-dollar business, okay? Down the line, you have hopefully people who have experienced tournament life, understand how to run a tournament. And I think, it was cool. I'll tell you, Lisa, when she replaced Tripp, right? And when Jordan was on a podcast, he has, history with her way back. She was running tournaments down there in Alabama for years before she got to.
She was fishing tournaments.
Yeah.
She fished the Lady Bassmasters.
But she was running stuff.
Yeah, but see, that's my point. You have somebody that has some experience. I'm not saying you give a competing angler the badge of CEO.
Right.
What I do think is that if there was a little bit more experience and understanding of what goes on as an angler, that decisions would be made differently.
I think these guys at the top over there know exactly. You know what I'm saying? They've been doing it. He's been there since 2019. He handled the split. You know what I'm saying?
I was in the middle of it.
Circumvented all that. You know how that went. And before last year, they were that. You know what I'm saying? They were the best run. They were, it was it. While the other one was floundering, stepping over itself all the time. I just think everything's in cycles. I think
you're right.
I think they're right to ship.
It ebbs and flows. But one of the best things, Josh Douglas, actually doesn't live too far from her, has been on the show. When he was working to earn a berth into one of those series, I asked him some questions, and I had some opinions on things. I told him, he goes, Thomas, I just want to fish and get paid for it. Like I don't really care what flag flies over my head. I want to make my living as a competitor.
Right.
And that took me back a minute, and it's impacted my opinions going forward. And I have my own experience to stand on, and my opinions are, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but
they're educated.
They're educated.
Right.
But that was a little humbling because I was like, you're right. Doggone it. Like we're in this business because we love the outdoors. And much like you, my early career was whitetail hunting and turkey oriented. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And had the opportunity to work with Ross Grothy, Jimmy Bell, and Tommy Scarless as kind of their on-hand media guy. So I went with them to all the tournaments and created content for them while they were there on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And that more or less catapulted me into the fishing business, and I've been super thankful ever since.
I agree.
But it's a blessing to do what we do.
It is.
It's not something I'm going to take for granted.
If you would have told me 10 years ago, now 15 years ago, I'd be doing this. Mm-hmm. I mean, before Dakota, so like I said, when I was doing the Facebook stuff with the mom and pops, you know what I mean? It was just bringing that into the outdoor industry and just going and going and going with different ways to go, with social media.
You had to adapt all the time, right?
Dude, it was. I had this one guy, Colin from Texas. Him and I we saw this thing at the same time. We're doing it, same thing. You know what I mean? And it was cool watching both of us go. It was a hell of a trip. You know what I mean? It really was.
It's been a good run. Like I would say the last 15 years of my life has been a pretty awesome run. But when I think what wears me down a little bit, if I was to be honest, is a lot of the drama. And I don't know that it's fixable.
It's human nature, brother.
You're probably right.
It's human nature. And I don't let the drama bother me. 1 year out the other, do what I can to rectify the things that are on me. It's going to happen. We're human beings. No two people are going to think exactly the same or have the exact same experience. If you have two people have the exact same experience, they're both going to come out with different outcomes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just on the perception. So, right now, there's not a bigger show on earth right now in the fishing industry. You know what I mean? There's really not.
Yeah.
And that and the NWT is what opens up everything for everybody, because that's where the sponsors get to make their money. Mm-hmm. That's where they get to do the research and development.
They get brand recognition, and they're the great thing about Bassmaster, and I will stand here and say it is the base. It's the core. It's the guys that get the tattoos on their arms and have decades of experience in a certain club and are local legends on a lake like that. Those are the stories I really appreciate.
Oh, I agree.
And I don't know that any kind of leadership could make that change.
No, I don't think so either.
And that's where, so to me, the value of what happens there, and In-Fisherman is largely that way. In my book, there were a group of people that founded this organization.
Absolutely.
It impacted me when I was a kid.
Oh my gosh,
sure
I've been a Linder fanboy forever.
Yeah.
Man. You know what I mean?
Well, what's cool though is the expansion of outdoor media in this town because of the origin of In-Fisherman being right here. And Doug's not here. He actually left right before you showed up. I would have loved to have introduced you to him, but
I would have had him sign my hat.
I actually didn't know he was here. All of a sudden, I heard the alarm system go off. I was like, "What did I do?" I think there's an important component to the generation that started all of this stuff. That there's a story to be told there. There's many stories to be told there.
Don't you think in the Midwest, In-Fisherman is probably as relevant, as important as Bassmaster?
I think in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
I think that the popularity of bass fishing due to the youth activities has changed that dynamic a little bit. But at the foundation in the Midwest, it's In-Fisherman.
Oh, here's a point I wanted to make. I thought about before. So we were talking about forward-facing sonar and if it's hurting fisheries, right?
Oh, yeah.
With catch and release being 95% of everything, how is it going to hurt anything?
That argument makes me laugh because,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're 100% right. If it's not the sonar hurting the fishery, it's the personal responsibility or lack thereof that could hurt that fish.
Exactly
Now,
right.
I do think if this does indeed make catching those fish easier, then the DNRs or the state fishery departments need to evaluate some of those limits.
I can't, in 5 years, let's see the data. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Let's see the data.
Now, I said a little bit ago, I don't know what the future is going to be. And we joked about trail cameras a minute ago too, but see, there are a couple states that have outlawed cell cameras.
Yeah, I saw that.
So if that has already happened, and I would consider a cell camera a lesser technological object than this forward-facing sonar. It's not as wide sweeping as what it can do. So if that's already happening, and we know that folks in Wisconsin, the legislature held town hall meetings to get opinions on forward-facing sonar this last year.
Oh, really?
So my problem with that is if you feel strong enough about something, you're going to go to a town hall meeting. But if you don't want to rock the ship, you're not going to go. So that to me says the not-haves or the antis are largely going to show up at those town halls
Right.
and
I would
express
agree
their
with that.
opinion.
I would
That's
agree
an
with that.
assumption. But guess
No,
what?
that's a good assumption.
But guess what happens is if you have the people that don't support it, influencing those that make the laws, that's concerning.
But that's the way it's been, right? Isn't that the way it was before this last election?
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right, and I don't mind saying it. But but truth be told, like I would like a few more years of data.
I agree,
as opposed to people's opinions, and make it biological data.
I agree. So, and the DNRs are so good at this stuff now. You know what I mean? The data collection, everything, and I think there should be delineation between predator fish and bass. You know what I mean? Because are the catch limits, okay? Are the limits going to be more significant because people can see now and get better through the electronics, you know? So, and think about it. Everything is put and take just about, you know what I mean? There's no real natural fisheries anymore. So we just so they just have to adjust to the numbers, right?
Well, and I think that even if you take forward-facing sonar out of the discussion here, there are lakes and fisheries that need different limits.
Yeah.
There's a place in Mississippi I've been crappie fishing where they limit the number of boats on the lake per day. There's only so many parking spots, and once it's full,
that's it.
So that's a way, but the daily limits are still pretty liberal. You're like 25 a day. It's a lot of crappies. But let's get down to the reality of how many fish do you really need in your freezer? You know,
I don't want to go there.
Well, but
I don't want to go there.
It's a true thing, though.
But then you're gonna go, how big's your family? You know what I mean? Well, if you're gonna eat fish, I mean, because quote unquote, we're hunting and gathering, right? That's the whole thing of being an outdoorsman. You're cooking, you're eating what you catch, right?
So the limits, and so you would propose limit adjustments over anything.
Yeah, I would not even limit adjustments. I would support these guys adding more fish into the fishery. Instead of hatching 10 million, you hatch 20 million.
Maybe so. I don't see a problem with that necessarily, but that does, you're a little bit at the mercy of Mother Nature in that situation.
Of course.
Some lakes don't accept stocking as well as other lakes. And now this is a prime example of an area. Yeah, there's a put and take fishery here, but like bass don't get stocked. Pike don't get stocked. Walleyes don't get stocked everywhere. They have created walleye lakes that do very well in them. They don't put smallmouth in Mille Lacs, but they should be stocking muskies again. That whole fishery, it's one of the best muskie fisheries in the world, and I don't mean by numbers, but your chance at a legit world-class fish is right there, but they don't stock them anymore. So,
but why is that?
That's another topic I don't know that we should go down today.
Well, money, right?
A lot of it's
what
money.
Makes the world go around.
That's right.
Those green fish, not the long, ugly ones. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I get that. And here people travel to Minnesota to go walleye fishing.
Yep.
And so there needs to be a sustainable population for the put and take scenario.
Correct.
And stocking needs to occur to balance that. So 100% agree with that, but there are lakes here that have never seen stocking that are vibrant fisheries, and those need to have the 5 bluegill limit, the 5 crappie limit.
Agreed.
So that's where I'm at. I would prefer a more conservative limit on some of these things, and I'm not saying you don't need to take every fish home you catch, although I don't think you need to take home every fish that you catch. But if you want that fishery to be good still, then if it's a trophy potential for bluegills, you don't need to take 15 10-inch bluegills home. Like,
but if you're going to eat them, we're hunter gatherers. That was the whole,
I hear you.
Either you're taking the hunter gatherer scenario out of what we do and just being a sportsman. You know what I mean?
But don't you think there needs to be some regulation therein?
But supposedly all these DNR take all the creel limits into account when they stock. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So supposedly that's all cooked into the pie.
Should be, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the way I look at it is Look, bass has never been better. You know what I'm saying? The bass numbers, bass lakes, never been better. You know, where I live up on by the Salmon River, the steelhead, the salmon, that's an industry in itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's an industry in itself. And they've got that down to a science, and they can do that anywhere. They can do that anywhere. My point is, you got to get out of the puritanical or the puristic view that this is not a game. It's a game, just like anything else. You know what I'm saying? The only reason why these things are happening is because we pay for our licenses, which allows us to take so much game and fish per day. And if you choose to do that and feed your family with it,
I don't have a problem with that.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't have a problem with that. But talk about personal responsibility with
Right. But your personal responsibility is abiding by the creel limits, abiding by the limits. Everything else is cooked into the pie. You know what I mean?
True.
I'm not going to tell a guy, listen, man, I know you can catch 10 crappie, okay? But, for the good of the sport and good of the lakes, you should only catch 5. He'll say, "Screw you, dude. I paid my license."
But what if the limit gets adjusted to 5?
Well, then that's the
different.
state. That's
Okay.
the state.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I'm seeing what you're saying.
See where the data is.
Well, what about the late in the winter crappie fishing scenario? Like every fish you catch out of 10 feet or more dies. Almost every one of them. Like, is there a personal responsibility there?
Does the DNR teach it? The only one I know teaching it is Aaron on his crappie sustainability videos, right?
That was interesting. It was rough around the edges, but very
Rough,
interesting.
but he had the idea. You saw where he was going with it,
So that,
And is
plus,
it true?
Well, we don't really know.
Right.
But see, so my point is that may have sparked an interest, I hope, within some fishery biologist offices and laboratories around the country to investigate barrel trauma a little bit more.
And how excuse me, and how do the DNR people test for that?
Yeah.
Not the way they're doing it now, because he kind of made sense that that's not a very good way of what they're doing.
I'm not a biologist. I'm not going to pretend to be a biologist, but what I do know is there's a lot of theories that get thrown around. Barrel trauma, there's a lot of truth behind that. Doug and the In-Fisherman folks here, the writers, have written a lot of articles about barrel trauma and delayed mortality. But
that was based off DNR, DEC.
But they did some testing here.
okay.
There's stuff that, they're like Steve Quinn and Matt Straw, they're scientists. But the point is, like, there's still a lot of theory behind this.
Yeah, agreed.
And I don't particularly like laws and regulations based on theories. And maybe that answers your question about,
we just came out of that, didn't we, Bubba?
We sure did. There was a lot of theories going on.
A lot of theories.
That's right. But I do think that if there's a concern about forward-facing sonar affecting fish populations, affecting certain species, then if it's going to, so I think that the limits are created to accommodate a certain percentage of success. Right. So if everybody that ever bought a license were to catch for limit out of Lake ABC, that lake would be ruined.
Right. Well, now I guess there's baked into the pie a certain percentage. Like, what's the old adage? 10% catch 100%. Right.
That's probably about right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if the data comes out that these advancements in electronics are hurting the fisheries, they'll make adjustments.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
And I have no problem with that. But they got to show. They got to prove the data.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They got to prove it. They can't just say.
That's what I want. And I think that's I think we're coming to that consensus knowing it, but ultimately I want to look at some, not if it's not irrefutable, it's watertight.
Right.
Some evidence
It's
that
common
indicates.
sense
Yes.
evidence that we can see and understand, not some. I'm not going.
I know.
Going there.
I get it. So you definitely need to consider personal responsibility, consider how legitimate theories are. I'm going to throw one out there that'll make some people angry, but I'm just going to say this: like, there is, as far as I know, no real data that supports holding a muskie vertically versus horizontal affects that fish's future. Now, I don't disagree with handling a fish correctly.
Right.
I want to, but somewhere along the line, back in the days when In-Fisherman was doing things, you had this look on, like, did that fish float down the bottom and die? Did it get somewhat deformed? We don't know. But so that was if you don't do it this way, you're unethical.
Right.
And that's based on a theory. Now, I'm going to reiterate, I don't think fish handling should be neglected.
Right.
But that was created off of a theory, that mindset.
Right. I agree with that. But isn't that how all conservation really started, though? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You look back, what's the new series that Bassmaster puts out?
Oh, yes. Yes,
right?
yes.
And you look at the old days when they were
They're on stringers.
bro.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, because it's been pounded into us. Catch and release bass. So it happens. Prey fish are different. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You catch your limit, get the numbers right, and that's your responsibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and Doug has been a huge proponent, and probably it was his brainchild, the selective harvest that In-Fisherman's promoted over the years. He loves to eat fish, and he's known for being quite the cook. But one of the things that this will hurt some people's ears, but one of his favorite fish to eat is like 13-inch largemouth.
Dude,
they're good to eat. And here in Minnesota, there are a lot of lakes with a very abundant bass population.
Right. Yeah.
And so that selective harvest, I think that like you can wrap this nicely up with a bow with this thought here, is that, we do want there to be fish for tomorrow. The bass tournament realm, those fish have to be released and taken care of because you want to be able to continue to fish tournaments there. If there was a catch and kill tournament on all these lakes every day, they'd be gone.
Oh my gosh. Think about I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Think about, and this is the one thing doing what I do now, I see the amount of tournament pressure that are on some of these southern lakes.
There's a tournament 365 on Guntersville.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Yeah.
And yet the bass population is still there. It's still thriving.
Some lakes I feel are very sustainable, and some are not. Don't react that way. I couldn't give you a lot of examples, and there are plenty of examples to indicate Guntersville, like the quality has perhaps gone down. I'm open to that discussion. Mille Lacs is another example. A tremendous amount of tournament pressure. They've limited that, but that place continues to be a great fishery.
And it supports the industry, and it is an industry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You gotta let the people make money. You gotta let the people spend money. You gotta let the people use it.
I think there's room for everybody, is what I'm getting at.
Too.
I think if you want to go catch your limit of crappies, go catch your limit of crappies based on what the limit on that body of water is. And there's an element, if you know a certain lake is being fished out, did it do something?
No.
Oh, you looked at that camera like it didn't quit working.
No.
No, there's an element where you do have to be aware that if a fishery is declining and the state doesn't know it yet, that you think, okay, well, maybe I don't need to go catch
Here,
limit
you want to go sideways?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Deer hunting, right? Especially out here in the Midwest, right? Oh, corn-fed deer, right? All they do is eat the corn. What's on that corn? What's on that field?
Pesticides.
Glyphosate.
Glyphosate.
Mm. You know what I'm saying?
What is that?
It's the herbicide that they use.
Like with Roundup Ready corn.
Roundup Ready.
Yes.
Roundup is glyphosate. Okay, that's the brand name of it. So you've got guys going out now, okay, drenching the field with Roundup, killing the weeds, right? Planting their food crop, right? Then hitting it again in between. So there's sometimes hitting their field 2-3 times with this pesticide, right? Or this herbicide, I should say. And the deer, they don't know if you just sprayed it or not. They're eating it. I would love to have a Midwest deer tested for glyphosate in the meat.
So I have a...
Dude, it's got to be.
I don't know.
Billions of pounds of this stuff is sprayed.
I agree that,
in
and there's obviously a lot of cancer warnings on it.
Oh,
I
dude.
totally agree with you on that. But Now, our food is pretty messed up in this country. This week I was talking with my wife, who has a degree in dietetics, about how it's like you can go to Italy and eat carbs until your ears fall off and lose weight. It's like there's something going on here. Don't exactly know what it is. I don't think you're wrong necessarily, but that would be really a hard thing to prove. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it would be a hard thing to prove. I think they just got to test the meat to see the amount of herbicide that's in the meat. I don't know if it's ever been done. If it's done, it's been kept quiet. But
I've been eating deer for 30 years from Iowa, and now
don't say it. Don't say it because you don't know. You don't know, baby.
Well, it's not going to make me stop. I'll tell you.
No. But I'm just saying, is that the cause of these new glyphosate? You know what I mean? If you look at all the studies now, all of a sudden, glyphosate is the one that's hurting us the most in our food, right? Mm-hmm. That's all the new studies are coming out. Some of us have known for a long time, but so now, we're seeing diseases in animals we've never seen before. Why?
So I have opinion on everything, but like CWD is an example. If you've ever been around an animal dying of CWD, it's terrible.
Yeah.
However, they don't know anything about that. And or
do they?
I don't think so. There are stacks of regulation. We're actually in a CWD hot zone here. There was a deer tested and discovered to have it, and so you're supposed to have every deer looked at that you shoot in this part of the state, this zone. Mm-hmm. I've been in. You have too. I've been in the deer hunting community deeply for a very long time, and I think the CWD has been completely mismanaged and fumbled. I think the way that their approach is incorrect. And most people feel that way because of something we talked about earlier. It doesn't add up when you factor in common sense.
Right.
Like there has to be a different way to look at it. For example, we could talk on this show about baiting versus not baiting all you want.
That's like New York when that started. We can't bait because they don't want animals coming to the same bait pile and contaminating each other.
But what they don't think about is how social a deer is anyways.
They're licking each other all the time.
All the time.
You know what I mean?
That was my point. Yeah, so it's like we could go way down this road on a fishing show. I think most of us like deer hunting enough that it's not putting anybody to sleep. But that to me is an example of a mismanagement.
Oh, I agree. And
if there is, then maybe here's something to think about. If what you said was correct, and I don't know, I have zero idea how much of that could be ingested by the deer and then passed on to us as the consumer of that meat. But maybe that chemical has made them more susceptible to a CWD or the EHD thing, which is not, EHD is largely confused. They're eating a bug more or less that gets down and it eats the inside of their throat away. It's a terrible thing. They call it a disease, but it's kind of not.
It's like a parasite.
It's kind of like a parasite. And again, I'm not a professional biologist.
Right. I want to put that disclaimer.
Yeah, that's right.
But all I'm saying, bro, is they're putting a lot of that stuff. And I mean, I understand the farmers to an extent, okay? Mm-hmm. But when you've got property owners, private property owners using that to put in food sources for animals and using that, Well,
take it a step further and let's talk big farming, like hog confinements and cattle lots. Like they're eating corn that was grown in those fields. So exactly. Maybe that's a question that needs to be investigated some more.
Oh, I think our buddy Kennedy's going to handle all that stuff pretty soon.
I'm intrigued by this guy.
You know what I mean?
Throughout the last year and a half, I have no problem admitting and being happy to confirm my conservative values. I think we can all come together and fish as one. You leave all that crap at the shore, but
the unity party, brother. The unity party.
Kennedy has my attention. I hope that if this fluoride thing that's in our water, if that's really a contaminant,
dude. Do you know there's studies that with the fluoride in the water, it's proven scientifically that it reduces IQ and everywhere that it's in the water.
Maybe that's my problem.
Yeah. And I've been on well water my whole life, so
we have well water at my house too.
So I'm not worried about that. But that's a big thing, and they've taken it out of public water systems now. Another big lie, right? Like the food pyramid was a big lie.
That's right. Now I said that to my dad not too long ago. He's like, "Yeah, always wondered that, but I saw the podcast or read something from Jordan Peterson that he kind of talked about that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a scam.
Or just like butter, right? Butter's good fat for your brain, and they made my parents, the 80s and the 80s down, all having margarine most of their lives, and autism's not autism,
ADHD kind of stuff,
where they lose their memory.
Oh, Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. There you go. Right.
I couldn't remember. That,
right. So, and Alzheimer's going through the roof like we've never seen before, because these people were on a low-fat diet that they were told was great all these years. Right.
And I think that as we've come along, we've learned that fat is actually a good thing.
Good fat is good for you. Right.
Yeah. I have a steak twice a week.
Red meat's good, brother. Mm-hmm. No, nothing wrong with red meat. Red meat, butter. Salt. Remember salt? You couldn't have salt.
Yeah, but the one thing you got to have is salt. Like, you got to have it.
It's just so crazy,
But good salt, So if you can get kosher salt or...
Kosher salt's good salt?
The pink Himalayan salt?
That's good. It's got to be ionized. Got to have the ionized.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Got to have iodine.
Okay.
Iodine is what that's how you get iodine, is through the salt. I use pink Himalayan now too.
Yeah, we have that in our house.
Yeah.
I like.
But remember, you couldn't have any salt, no fat. You know what I mean? That was the gospel for my parents.
And it wasn't that long ago, Craig.
No.
And we talk about we want to see long-term results. Like,
Right.
we haven't even been through a lifetime to have that. And that said, think about how young fishing and hunting conservation is, really.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago where every muskie caught got the sides filleted off and they fed the family and invited company. It was like there's a point where we have to learn from our mistakes, and that's an example of a fishery that rebounded because of catch and release
I agree
and
with that.
stocking efforts. But we don't have a lifetime of data to make 100% claims on a lot of things.
Nothing. We really don't. It's like a flash in the pan for us right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It really is. And to be so self-assured some people are.
And they speak like it's biblical.
You know what I mean, bro? It's I don't get it. We've been I don't care what flavor you are, okay? The truth has been spilled out 3 different ways this Sunday, and nothing we were told is really the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think there's room for anything biblical except for the biblical. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. Everything's up for conjecture right now.
100% right.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Because they've been lying to us for a long, long time about everything.
And Lord willing, if the human race is around in 200, 300, 400 years, then maybe they can look back and be like, man, that 50-year period was a hot mess. They'll dredge up an old podcast, be like, this is this guy. This guy knows what's going on. Crazy New Yorker. Dude, this has been a lot of fun.
I agree.
I think you and I could do a podcast daily. I mean, I don't want to cut us off. We're literally at 2 hours, but it's like, we got a lot we could talk about.
Yeah.
We're just kind of barely touching on some
we
topics.
We are.
Let's do it again.
I would love to, man.
Hey, Craig Storms, what is your job title anyways?
I am now Strategic Partnership and Pro Staff Manager.
At Dakota Lithium.com. That's right. If you want to learn more about any batteries, reach out to the Facebook page. I know that there's people ready to help. That's how you and I met.
Yep.
And it's been a fruitful relationship so far, but this has been my favorite part. Just hanging out and talking.
I got it, brother.
Hey, thanks for being here. We'll catch you next time. This has been good.
Have a good one, guys.
See you.